Thanks for taking the time to watch Adventures in the Outdoors, Ask a Thru Hiker, where we're following Appalachian Trail northbound thru hiker Storm on his journey from Georgia to Maine. Currently you're at mile...
1,491.8.
And day number...
I keep forgetting this. I believe it's day 114. Or 115. I think it's day 115.
Suffice to say, Storm has traveled quite far from Georgia all the way to here along the banks of the Housatonic River in Connecticut.
Just a short walk.
Just a short walk. He'll be heading into Massachusetts tomorrow and then onward north to Vermont, into New Hampshire.
And then finally Maine.
Finally Maine, and then Mount Katahdin.
Oh yeah.
So as part of our Ask a Thru Hiker, we've been soliciting questions, and today's question is from Sherry, and she asks, how does the feel of the trail change from state to state?
Or does the trail?
Does the trail change from state to state?
The feel of the trail. Does the feel of the trail?
Can you tell you're in Connecticut versus Virginia or Georgia?
I don't think you can tell you're in a different state in regards to, like, without a sign, but definitely the way the AT is laid out, the trail does feel different from state to state. In Georgia, you know, you get out there that first, you know, you walk into those woods leaving Springer or Amicalola Falls if you do the approach trail. I gotta stand, I'm getting soaked. And, you know, you kind of have this feeling of I'm going to throw up because, oh my God, what am I doing? And when you're in Georgia, everything is so new and exciting, and it's like, oh my God, we're here, we're doing this. So it definitely has a feel of excitement. And once you leave Georgia and get to North Carolina, you start getting into the big climbs. The beginning of, you know, Georgia definitely has some big climbs at the beginning, and people underestimate Georgia, but you're kind of in that excitement mode, so it kind of alleviates the fact that you're climbing some big stuff. You're definitely sore and hurting, but the excitement phase is Georgia, and a little bit North Carolina, and then you start getting into the bigger climbs. Smoky Mountains is sort of North Carolina and Tennessee, so it has that national park feel. And you know, you're there for a while and you go through a little section of Tennessee, and then you finally come into Virginia and you're like, oh my God, I'm in Virginia. And sort of when you get to Virginia, the honeymoon phase of the trail is over. That exciting, you know, I'm doing this, and then it's like, oh gosh, my job is to walk every day. And Virginia definitely feels different than the other states so far. At this point, it's getting warmer and more humid, so it definitely has a summer feel to it, whereas Tennessee and North Carolina and Georgia was more of the spring feel. You know, your plants change, you know, you're more rhododendrons in the first three states, and then when you get to Virginia, that kind of changes, a different plant type. And Virginia is very long, and you're past the excitement phase, and you're into my job is now to do X. And it's long, and there's a lot of big climbs, and then you get to the Blue Ridge, and then once you get into Shenandoah National Park, then you're in that national park phase feel again. So it definitely has a different feel than the other three states. And obviously license plates, you'll notice those, so you definitely can tell where you are. But
how is Pennsylvania different?
Oh, once you get to then you get to so you come out of Virginia, just keeps dragging on and on, and then when you think you're out of Virginia, Virginia throws the roller coaster at you, like, haha, here's our last screw you, or whatever you want to call it. But this is 13 miles of these ups and downs where you're like, please let this be over. And then you get into West Virginia and you're like, I'm at the unofficial halfway point, so it's that, holy crap, I just walked half the trail. Not the real halfway point, but pretty close. And West Virginia, you've been in Virginia for so long, like, it's just, like, it's 500 miles, over 500 miles, so it's a quarter of the trail. And you get to West Virginia, like, I am finally I can't believe we're out of Virginia. Like, we're done with, like, holy crap, we just walked through Virginia. And if you drive through Virginia, it's very long. And when you get into West Virginia, you get that exciting feel. And West Virginia is 17 miles, so it's like, before you know it, you see the sign for Maryland, and you're like, another state done. And now, you know, Maryland goes pretty quick. West Virginia has the excitement feel. Maryland, for me, was like the state, because before you can even think or get a feel for it, you're out of it. So then you're like another state down. So it's sort of like I called it the check off the list state. I did it in the rain. So probably that was part of the reason why it didn't really have a feel for me, but it sort of was for me the check off the list state. And then when you get into Pennsylvania, you get for me, I'm home, because you can go across the Mason-Dixon line, and that's a big, whether you're a southerner or a northerner, that's a big milestone to cross the Mason-Dixon line. It's sort of like we're making progress. And the feel of Pennsylvania is you have sharp, steep, short climbs, and then you're on flat ridges. And the first half of the state's really pretty, and the climbing, you know, it's steep ups, and then you have sort of a ridge walk, and then you have a steep down, and then you go another steep up, and then when you get about halfway through the state, that's when the rocks start, and they get to the point where you're like, just let this be over, I can't take much more, and it beats you up. Pennsylvania beats most thru hikers up about the halfway point through the state, because you just have 13 miles, 16 miles a day of just rocks. You're walking on rocks, you're balancing on rocks, you're stepping on boulders, and then you get to pointy rocks, and they're stabbing you in the feet, just again and again and again. And mentally, I think people say you get the Virginia blues. I think most thru hikers I talk to halfway through Pennsylvania gave you the depression of, this is awful. It's just, you get like, I can't do anymore, and then finally you start climbing down into the Delaware Water Gap, and like instantly the rocks are gone, and you get to the river, you know, cute little town, and then you walk across the bridge into New Jersey, and then it's sort of like, wow, you know, New Jersey, another state done. Thank God Pennsylvania is done. Like, you get that refreshing, wow. And New Jersey, for me, it was a totally different feel again. Like, Pennsylvania just had this feel to it, you know, flat ridges with these awful rocks, and then you cross the river and you climb up into New Jersey out of the Delaware Water Gap, and you get on these like smooth rock ledges with these fantastic views into the valley. And it was sort of like, for me, Virginia had the feel of surprise. Like, I didn't realize it was this pretty, so I was very surprised, and it was actually one of my favorite sections of the trail. You know, climbing wasn't too bad. You'd go down and up a few times, but basically you'd be up on these long rock ledges, and I ended up doing some of it in the rain, so that made it a little bit tough with slippery rocks, but if it was all dry weather, it would have been fine. And then as we progressed into New Jersey, the feel for a lot of us was hot and dry, because now we're in the throes of summer, and we've had a very dry season. So the feel of the trail became one of, not necessarily like good or bad, but it was pretty much all priority of water. Do I have enough water, and where am I going to get more water, because everything is dry. So that was the second half of New Jersey coming to New York, and then the stretch through New York was just very hot, at least for me. Hot and dry, so it was all about the water. And New York for me was the feel of, wow, this is so much tougher. Nobody talks about New York, and it's not a very long section, but instead of following the hills and the ridges, you go across them. So you go up, you go down, you go up, you go down. And it was almost the feel of the roller coaster, and if anything, harder than the roller coaster. And they don't talk about that in the book. Nobody talks about New York, and I think the roller coaster in Virginia is a big deal, as the guy who designed the trail through there named it, "Welcome to the roller coaster," you know, like, you know, good luck, and we'll see you at the end, and have a great ride. And whoever designed the trail through New York did make a big deal about it. So New York was definitely the feel of hot and dry, and tough, much tougher than one would think. And then coming into Connecticut, again, Connecticut was another state that's, for me, was the state of surprise. I didn't realize it was as hilly, or, you know, we went up 1,300 feet today almost, and you're looking down into the valley going, holy crap, I didn't realize the western part of the state had hills that were this tall. And there was a lot of climbing up and down today. So far, that's where I'm at, Connecticut. But definitely each state has its own feel, and I think a lot of it depends for each thru hiker, weather, people that you're with, and support, whether you have enough water or enough supplies. I think each thru hiker would have a different feel for each state, but they definitely, it does change as you go from state to state.
Well, thank you, Storm, and thank you for watching Adventure in the Outdoors, Ask a Thru Hiker. Be sure to follow Adventures on the Outdoors on Facebook and on the web. Until next time, thank you.
Bye, guys.